El futuro tiene nada más que la confrontación.
Hey, welcome to You Don't Even Like This Show. I'm your host, Adam Todd Brown. I used to host a podcast called Unpopular Opinion, and that podcast was this podcast. But then everyone else in the world decided they liked the name Unpopular Opinion a lot too, so we changed the name to You Don't Even Like This Show. Each week, me and a couple of guests selected from a pool of the absolute sharpest minds the LA entertainment scene has to offer use this here space to talk about whatever the hell we want. News, pop culture, politics, information, you name it, we talk about it. And sometimes my co-host Jeff May is here too. It's a blast. You're gonna love it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the most Midwest episode of You Don't Even Like This Show, possibly of all time. I am your host, Adam Todd Brown. Joining me as guests today, first of all, first time in a long time, Jack Kelly's here.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be back. Excited to be repping the Midwest in the most Midwest episode. I wish there was a video component to this episode.
Oh, we do record video. I can't not put out a clip of what's happening right now.
It's too good.
Yeah, we look like we're in a Midwest sports-based boy band or something.
We look like we're in a Naughty Boy video.
Hey, that was Andy Sell you just heard.
Hello.
Hello. And we are all from the Midwest, but Andy and Jack are from Iowa.
Well, sort of. He's from Iowa. I'm a crossover.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've embraced it, so.
Yeah.
So you're like several members of Slipknot, who I'm assuming were not originally from Iowa, but maybe moved there.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andy, where in Iowa are you from?
Cedar Rapids. I'm from the Crapids. 319. What?
What?
Which I think that might have been the only area code in Iowa for a while.
Yeah, I think so. I have a neighbor who has a 319 area code, and I saw it on the board in my apartment manager's home, and I immediately went, is Kyle from Iowa? And I instantly had to go talk to him about it.
Yeah. Oh, there's a car on my street that has Lynn County plates, and I'm like, I need to meet this person. I need to find them.
Yeah.
I just had to double check. I lived in South Dakota for about a decade. They still only have one area code, 605.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, but I went to the University of Iowa for college. So, that's how I'm decked out in Iowa things. And so I lived there for a few years and voted there in 2008 and 2010. And then I've been out here for 12 years, but I still get harassed by Iowa nonprofits and everybody asking me if I'm going to vote in the state of Iowa.
Oh, gosh.
Woo!
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if we're all going to go to prison under this administration for being registered and to vote in two different states, which is common and not illegal until a Nazi's in office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know where all I'm registered anymore. I've lived in so many places.
Yeah, me too. And I've voted in most of them.
Yeah. I mean, I vote in all of them every election. I vote in all of them. Like, What am I not supposed to do that? I thought you were accrued. It was accrued, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's like how you show your cred of where you live.
Are you really a Democrat? Show me your 6 I voted stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to joke about because voter fraud is not really a problem. Voter suppression, on the other hand, is, and it just so happens to coincidentally be linked to the myth of voter fraud. That I'm sorry, what were we talking about? I blacked out.
Oh, we're talking about Iowa. I'm surprised we haven't said that. I feel like people probably saw the title of the episode before they started listening.
Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
I did a show there in Dyersville.
Dyersville? Did you do it in the field?
No, but me and comedian Chet Wild went to the Field of Dreams house. Couple fun revelations. One, you could rent that out overnight for about $2,500, which no thanks. Also,
come on.
They have a guide there, and we were there in the heart of the Midwest summer, which is like Africa hot if people haven't been there.
It's humid, it's gross. It's mosquitoes. Yeah.
And this dude, bless his heart, was wearing an authentic wool Chicago Black Sox uniform, long sleeves and everything.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 103 out there.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Also, no corn in the cornfield. You don't think about that. Time that if you're going to visit the Dyersville, Iowa Field of Dreams house. You get there in the wrong season. That cornfield wasn't a prop.
You don't get to walk through like a ghost. Yeah.
That's a real cornfield.
It's real corn.
You get to just walk out from a slightly different flat texture onto a baseball diamond. It's way less dramatic.
Yeah. A bunch of guys named Craig, showing pictures. But you got to just imagine that there's corn behind me.
But also the show in Dyersville was a blast. And thank you for everyone who came.
Hell yeah. I want to perform in Dyersville.
I feel like we could go back.
Yeah. Is the Ertl factory still there? Isn't that where Ertl is?
I know, but I'm not going to spoil it for people.
That's fair. Yeah. I get. Yeah.
I want people at home to have to Google it.
Yeah. Do your research, people. We're not going to spoon feed you.
So when I say we're talking about Iowa,
we're talking about all the good things in Iowa, right?
Yeah.
All the stuff we like,
Culver's, Slipknot.
Slipknot, sweet corn.
Caitlin Clark in the off season.
Taco pizza.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Casey's Pizza. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a Happy Joe's fan, but I will eat a Casey's in a pinch.
I think
sure.
Happy Joe's must have been strictly Iowa because that was never anywhere I lived.
Yeah, I feel like it was made. There might have been like a location in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I lived in Illinois, Wisconsin, and South Dakota over my formative years. I grew up in Illinois. I lived there till I was 19. Then Wisconsin for like 6-7 years. Then South Dakota for way too many years.
You're actually the most Midwest of us.
Yeah.
Then, because you're just
Possibly.
like every part of the Midwest. You speak all the Midwestern dialects.
The Dakotas are a different type of Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could argue that they're not part of the Midwest, but they are part of the Midwest, but they're not part of the Midwest.
Upper Midwest.
It's weird. Yeah. It's like, what do you count Ohio or not?
Depends on how well behaved Ohio is being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Ohio's being a real piece of shit, you're like, we don't own them. They are their own thing.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, culturally, it's funny. People like lump the Midwest all together, but if you're from the Midwest, you understand that each state kind of has a different culture. And even within those states, I think I say this all the time on this show, those regions have their own cultures. Like Southern Illinois is the South.
Yeah.
Southern Iowa is the South, really.
You could almost even say that, like, if you want a comparison for people who are not from the Midwest, for like the state of Illinois, for instance, say like Chicagoland area, that is akin to New York City and its surrounding area. Like, that's really like what it is. And then upstate New York and like the rest of Illinois is comparable. There's a lot more land. People aren't as close to one another. I mean, like the more rural you get, the redder it gets, especially the closer you get to the southern parts of Illinois. I have been blessed to only have had to have driven through southern Illinois. We did do one family vacation to Springfield, and that was kind of it.
Oh, dang.
Don't know why that was a place my parents decided we needed to go, but we did. But yeah, and then Iowa, I was looking at, because I was like, how many people actually do live in Iowa? It is only 3.19 million.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
That's it. The last time I checked, Des Moines, the capital, only has 250,000 people.
Yeah.
So, if you're thinking about the size of this state and like how many people live there, it's like there's really only a few hubs where people actually live, and then the rest of it is really farmland.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys could probably name people who are from towns of like 100 people or less.
Oh yeah, my dad's from a town that's like population 500.
Yeah, I dated a girl for a long time who was from a town in South Dakota that was like population 1,200.
I have a friend from college who was from a town of like 100 people.
Yeah.
That's smaller than my graduating high school class.
Yeah, I have another one. I mean, this was the late aught. He graduated high school. His town only had internet at the library, which was only open on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Jesus.
So
Wow.
that was it. And like they
Wow.
lived in the boonies. And so I was always like calling him like when we were on breaks because he's like, we just don't really have the internet out here, or I have to be on, and it's like that was before smartphones were really like a huge deal when we were in college. And, there was just not any service out there.
And those small towns are getting smaller too, like because people leave, they don't stick around. Like my dad's hometown, again, it's tiny. I don't even know if the 500 figure is accurate anymore. Like they had one restaurant. There's one restaurant and one bar in that town. There is no movie theater for like, I don't know, 30 miles or something, 50 miles maybe. It's a ways. And I think it's literally 2 stoplights. The only businesses are liquor stores and funeral homes.
So I didn't, I think, actually get to what we're actually talking about.
Sorry, I interrupted you because I was like doing a bit about, we were talking about fun things, and then we ended up in a whole other.
Let's go back to talking about wings. Everybody, we were talking about wings before.
Yeah, check out the outtakes to hear us talk about wings for about an hour and a half before this. It's a very
Wingscast.
Midwest moment from the outtakes for sure. So what we're talking about specifically is how Iowa went from, they were a purple state,
Yeah.
not completely progressive or anything, to now, which Iowa and Wisconsin are like fighting it out to be the Texas of the Midwest.
Which is just like, guys, we already have Indiana. Why are you?
Exactly.
Well, Indiana, I always say, is more of the Alabama of the Midwest.
Indiana's the East Coast because they're on Eastern time zone.
And then Ohio is the Florida of the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Illinois is the New York of the Midwest.
Fuck yes.
And whatever equivalent state that hates unions, that's Wisconsin. Fuck you, Scott Walker.
Oh, God, what a piece of shit.
Wisconsin used to love unions. I feel like that is a big part of this idea that, well, a lot of these places like Wisconsin, Iowa especially, used to be a little more progressive leaning, like more of a purple state. And I feel like what we're finding out is a lot of those people were like, oh no, I just like unions. I don't fuck with black people, if that's what you thought.
Yeah.
Like we're not that left leaning. I have a union and I keep my job even when I call my buddy the N-word at work,
I would say there's also probably a strong progressive contingent in Iowa that just is distrustful. Like they have progressive values, but they're distrustful of the Democratic Party, which would make them more leftist than, liberal. So they're not necessarily blue leaning,
right?
Which cuts down on the purple maybe because, they have political values that don't really get represented in policy making.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that like a big thing, like when I was voting, because like I said, I voted in 2008 and 2010. So like the very first election I voted in was the general election for Barack Obama. So like, and I voted in Iowa City. So Johnson County, like that is the University of Iowa. That's a ton of college students right there. And so like we were encouraged if we lived elsewhere, especially in Democratic strongholds, to register in Iowa. So I'm from Illinois. Like it's going to go blue, like whether the rurals want it or not, it's going to go blue.
Yeah.
So I registered in Iowa because I was like, well, my vote's going to actually matter here. So that's why I registered. And so if you looked at a map of Iowa, I mean, even now, if you look at a map of Iowa, for the most part, the Democratic strongholds are all where the universities are and where Des Moines is.
And where people live, where the populations are dense, which is the same across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the same in Minnesota, Minneapolis is super duper blue. And then the rest of the state.
Don't go to Anoka.
Jesus. Yeah. So, Andy, you grew up in Iowa. How long did you live in Iowa?
I lived there from birth to I was born there in St. Luke's Hospital, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the city of five smells. And we left when I was 5. We moved to New Jersey for 2 years. And then we moved back to Iowa. And I was there for another 7 years. So I think totally 12 years-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Where'd you go from there?
Colorado. Yeah. Suburbs of Denver. And that was life-saving. If I'd stayed in Iowa, I was depressed as shit there. I had very few. I mean, I was kind of coming out of my shell a little bit by the time I was 14, by the time we moved, but like I was still the weird kid. I was still the like didn't get along with people, didn't have a lot of friends, didn't have a lot of my interests reflected in the world around me. We moved to Colorado and it was like suburb of Denver. So like immediately it's just like, oh shit, there are people that are like me here.
Yeah.
Because and even in Cedar Rapids, which is the second largest city in Iowa, we were in a suburb of it, but so it was pretty homogenous, even in like a densely populated area like that.
I think I spent most of my Iowa time in Sioux City because that is so close to
Sewer City.
Yeah, Sewer City. And it earned that name. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, that place sucks.
It fucking reeks there. They have a pretty decent concert venue down there, though. And one of my favorite memories in life, I snuck into a Fleetwood Mac concert in Sioux City, Iowa. And it was one of the best nights I've ever had. It was great.
Yeah, dang. Yeah. I mean, okay. Sewer City, it sucks, but you can have one of the best nights of your life there. I believe it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a Fleetwood Mac concert.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with a Fleetwood Mac concert.
So Iowa, enough of the pleasantries. The inspiration behind this episode, Iowa, at one point, third state in the nation to legalize same-sex marriage. Actually,
they were tied for second.
Oh,
they did it on the same day as the other state. I can't remember because it was Delaware was first, right? No. Massachusetts was first. Massachusetts was first, and then it was Delaware and Iowa on the same day.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. So they were tied for second. So sometimes we get called second, sometimes we get called third.
Iowa must have signed theirs later in the day because I always see them.
You always see it as third?
Listed as third.
Well, time zones and everything. Like it's probable. Yeah.
And see, I think it was Colorado second, because if so, then time zones would probably explain it. I don't know.
I don't know.
But
I don't know, man.
Iowa has since then, in a short, about 15 years, gone from second or third state in the nation.
Depending on who you ask.
I mean, I might be full of shit here too. I might be totally wrong.
To first state in the nation to remove transgender rights protections from their constitution.
Yeah.
It's
pretty cool. Pretty cool state. Pretty cool state.
Pretty cool what we let them do to it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we should talk about this up top or at the end because, I want to kind of get into how that shift happened. But
yeah, you want to sort of build to.
Yeah, but I also don't know, do we
Well, how far back do you go is the question.
Christopher Nolan it and start with this bill and then
jump around?
Yeah. And
little Iowa-ception.
Because I think it's important for people to know where this conversation is going and what exactly is happening. Because there's actually like this is part of it, but they also signed something else today that a friend of mine posted about that I am going to tease a little bit right here, right now, that is going to make this worse. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I mean.
And for people who don't know, I am trans. So this is and as somebody that lived in Iowa and has a lot of friends in Iowa, including trans friends in Iowa, and just seeing everything that's happening, it's this has personal ramifications for me. And that was one reason why I was Adam, let me on this episode.
Yeah.
Because it's genuinely very frightening. It's a good time. It's really fun to be trans globally. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
This was, along with mass deportations, this was one of the things that separated Trump from Harris in my mind. This was going to happen at a state level under either of them.
I want to say, I keep seeing people bring up mass deportations as a distinction. Harris was also about mass deportations.
Harris was about deportations at the level deportations have been at in this country forever. The difference is Trump's not pulling off mass deportations right now. He doesn't have the fucking wherewithal to do it. He says he is, but he's just deporting a few more people than Biden did. But that will get worse to a point where there won't be a comparison anymore. And I think on trans issues, there is not much of a comparison because this was going to happen at a state level no matter what, no matter who was president.
And Harris said she was going to trust the states to work it out on their own.
Sure.
So,
but I think at a federal level, Trump is infinitely worse.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree. I do think Trump's worse. I guess the one thing I want to say that I think is a good thing is that there isn't the infrastructure in place for the stuff he wants to do.
Not yet.
But it's also like, he's going to spread it too thin because he's going after everyone. And I think that as long as we continue to resist wherever we can, especially culturally and especially out in the open and publicly, there's a chance that we can keep it from congealing in the places he needs it to congeal.
Or he'll just arrest protesters.
Yeah, but arrest how many and with what force? You know what I mean? Like, he's got ICE, and it's going to be ICE is the secret police, essentially. That's his Gestapo.
This feels like the Storm Area 51 argument, where they're like, they can't shoot us all at once. The fuck they can't. Probably with alien tech you've never seen before.
Okay, fair. But this is how resistances to fascism and authoritarianism, this is where they succeed, is horizontally challenging.
Yeah.
Anyway, I might have got too high before recording.
Oh, I'm getting high right now.
Sick.
Cool. I'm the only sober one on this podcast.
Yeah, you're the driver. You're driving.
Cool. Great. Oh, that's a mistake. That's a mistake. We're going to go back to talking about wings and gay media. We weren't talking about that before, but Adam, this is now your podcast.
Hell yeah, gay media.
So let's circle back to the actual law itself that was signed. That's what we're building up to. That's what inspired this episode. And the other thing that inspired it, I wrote an article for Playboy, would have probably been 2014, called Is Iowa the Most Progressive State in the Nation? And I didn't super duper mean that. I don't think they were the most progressive state in the nation, but I knew it was the kind of title people be like, what the fuck? But they weren't not one of the more progressive states in the nation at that point.
No, and the education system there for a very long time was one of the best in the nation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's just a little over 10 years ago that I would have written that article.
Yeah.
And I would love to link to it, but I don't think exists anywhere online now because Playboy, I don't know if people know this, but internally was run about as efficiently as the Fire Festival.
Should have called it Work Boy instead of Playboy. Might have got some stuff done.
Right? But it's fine. So at the time, Iowa did seem a little more progressive than a lot of states around it. Maybe not Illinois. We've always been doing all right. Yeah. But it seems like this was a pretty quick descent, especially if you go back to 2009 when they legalized same-sex marriage. April 3rd, 2009.
Yeah, I have distinct memories from that day. I was freshman in college. I remember that that day the announcement happened. University of Iowa is in Iowa City, Iowa, the most redundant school on the planet. And we had a whole rally in front of the old Capitol building on the Pentecrest, which is Iowa's quad. And it was absolutely incredible. It was people were crying. It was such an emotional day. So many people came out of just so happy. I had so many friends that were so excited. It was the next day they were going to go get married. And it was such a big deal. And I remember somehow getting my hands on a flag and it was on a PVC pipe and I could only be there for a little bit. I was on a competitive swing dance team at the time and we were performing somewhere. And so I had to leave early to go do that at the Englert, which is a theater in Iowa City. So in case you're wondering what my cred is, yes, I know the places. And, we were going to the Englert to go perform, but I just remember walking through downtown Iowa City with my giant flag, my giant rainbow flag, and just so proud and so happy that I was living in a state and I was part of, the movement to have this happen. it was just so emotional. And like Iowa City particularly is very liberal. I mean, that's what happens with college towns a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful and emotional day. And I just remember everybody, especially all of my queer friends, were just so emotional about it and so happy about it. And to watch this happen, like having been there and been in that environment for same-sex marriage, especially being like, we're Iowa, we're the third state to do this. California couldn't even fucking keep it together.
Yeah.
Like that was a real point of pride for Iowa. Like,
Mhm.
and we can talk about, I know Adam, you have it in your stuff of like California and gay marriage, for instance.
This was before, yeah.
This was after Prop 8 happened for California, and so like they repealed it, but I was like, we did it. Take that, California. We're the little state that could. And so it was just like it was a real point of pride. And then now to watch Iowa just slide into this fascistic descent and falling for the, trans boogeyman that all these fucking idiots are falling for is so disappointing, and it's heartbreaking, especially seeing stuff posted by my friends in Iowa who work for like LGBT nonprofits and like work with like queer youth and everything, and then like watching them be like, I don't know what the fuck we're supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
My thing with Iowa too is like when I lived there, it was all I saw was ignorance and like, bigotry and right-wing horse shit because of where I lived.
Yeah.
There, because it was a suburb. I mean, again, it was a big city, which is, Cedar Rapids votes, I think, predominantly Democrat blue, but the suburbs where I was very white and shitty, we'll just say.
Oh.
And so I remember in third grade, 1988, because it was the Dukakis Bush election, we did a mock election of third graders, which is okay. It was just one of those like teach you about the electoral process as a kid. It's fun, right? We did a mock election. The only two people who voted for Dukakis were me and the teacher. And everyone else voted Bush because that's what their parents were going to do.
Andy, if it makes you feel any better, it was the same in my fifth grade mock elections in the Chicago suburbs, where I was one of 3 kids that drew Al Gore for the 2000 election, and everybody else drew Bush. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So that's the suburbs, baby.
Yeah. We had a neighbor who had like Bush signs out in 92, I think it was. And my brother and I would take them out of their yard and rip them up, and they kept like putting new ones out, and we'd get them and throw them in the cornfield.
Yeah. I am old enough to have watched the 84 election where everyone voted for Reagan except Minnesota.
Yeah, I remember that morning at my house.
Yeah, that was
Minnesota knew what was up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minnesota's like, we do not trust that man.
No, yeah. I mean, that's why I live here. That's why, like, it's staunchly blue. It has arts funding written into its state constitution. It's like doing all the sanctuary and refuge stuff it needs to do. And it's close enough to Canada that if I need to, I can dip.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, for me, I keep reading about how Illinois is the one state in this region that's like moving super duper left.
Yeah. Pritzker.
And if I'm going to go back to the Midwest anywhere, maybe it's going to be fucking Illinois. I don't know.
I'd always go back to Chicago. That's where my heart is.
I love Chicago. I love it so much. If I lived there, I would relapse so fucking fast.
It just feels like, from a cost of living standpoint, like a lateral move to go from LA to Chicago. If I'm going to move to the Midwest, I'm going somewhere fucking relatively cheap, at least.
Yeah, Chicago is very expensive. And there's the winter. And if you're going to do winter, it might as well be a cheap winter. So,
yeah.
Minnesota.
So, should we talk about how this shift may have happened in
I guess
Iowa?
I guess we can talk about it.
I got a lot of theories.
One thing worth noting here: no state in the nation swung as heavily Republican between 2012 and 2020 as Iowa did. Went from a 6 percentage point victory for Obama to an 8-point win for Trump in 2024. That is a quote from the New York Times the Nazi collaborator of record.
Fuck New York Times.
Oh man, that fucking chart they put out. Oof. Burn them to the ground.
Which chart?
Oh, you did. It was I saw it a bunch on.
It's hard to keep up with the crimes of the New York Times, honestly.
Yeah, it was a chart that said something like writers rate Trump's first moves in office. And the bottom part of the axis was effective to ineffective, or no, consequential to inconsequential. And the up and down axis, I think, was effective to ineffective. It had the DEI stuff way up by effective, and it had the trans stuff by inconsequential and I think like ineffective.
So you're telling me that the newspaper that kept pushing like vehemently, violently anti-trans narrative is
go figure
on Trump's side? I'm shocked.
Yeah, go figure. Yeah, I'll link to that chart in the show notes if I can find it. It was
garbage.
Pretty fucking wild. So here's an interesting stat I found from a 2014 Des Moines Register article. In February 2014, 34% of respondents to an Iowa poll claimed to be disappointed that Iowa allowed same-sex marriage. 28% were proud of the decision. 36% delivered a very Midwestern, I don't give a shit either way.
Yeah, that's the number one thing about Iowa. It doesn't like it. I don't care. They don't care. They don't care about anything. So like they'll go in for leftist policies if it speaks to their lives, but if it doesn't, they just don't care about anything. And that's the thing is like, you know, look at this poll and it's like, well, only 28% were proud, but it's like, yeah, but you got to understand the Iowa heart is cold and it doesn't care. So you have to like count your I don't cares in with the proud, because that's the other thing in Iowa. You don't be proud of things. You're not allowed to be proud of things.
The other thing too is that like you also have to take into account of like who is responding to these polls, and that like you don't necessarily know, like it's like, do they have like an age breakdown or anything?
Oh yeah,
because it's like because I know a lot of times with these polling, it's like if they're doing it by classic measures of like we're calling people, okay, millennials and Gen Z don't answer their phones.
Yeah.
So like we're not gonna like, I'm sorry, you're a number that I don't know. I don't care if I'm waiting for a fucking like job offer. I'm not answering my fucking phone.
And I think even in 2014, I think even by then I wasn't answering my phone.
We're Gen X. We don't answer the phone either.
Yeah.
The difference is millennials and Gen Z just don't answer their phone across the political spectrum. Gen Xers will only answer the phone if they're going to tell you some right-wing crazy horse shit.
Yeah. And then boomers are like, is this my children calling? And it's like, no, your children aren't speaking to you.
Honey.
But like it that's part of it too, is that like who's responding to these polls as well, and like looking at that. And you know, so sometimes I'm like, some of these polls I'm just like I wonder how much it would actually skew either way. But I do agree with Andy's point of just like Iowans, like they are proud of whatever their state is doing at the time, and especially if they can rub it in like another state's face. So like in a way, like, you know, being able to say like, oh, we made gay marriage legal before California was like a huge point of pride. But on the flip side, you're going to have a lot of Iowans who are going to be like, we took care of the trans issue before anybody else. And be like, hey guys, not a thing you should actually be proud of.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be proud of that, because they just want to get their chip on the board. That's all they care about. They want people to recognize that they exist and that they're making moves and they're doing the thing regardless of what those moves are. And that's ugh is a real fucking reaction. Yeah. But that's the thing, is that like, you know, they're going to be touting that as like, well, we took care of the quote unquote trans issue, when really trans people just want to be fucking left alone.
Yeah.
I even did the math just so people have an idea of how many trans, I know we're just going to keep touching back on it. How many trans people live in Iowa? I actually did the math. The most generous estimate of trans people that exist is like 3%. In the entire state of Iowa, that is like 95,000 people. By the most conservative estimates, that's like 19,000 people. 19,000 people they are stripping rights from.
Yeah.
For what? For what? And just by comparison, I was like, what colleges are around this size? That's the entire enrollment of the University of Oregon. It's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like it truly is not a lot of people.
But they get that Nike sponsorship.
You know what? I forgot about the trans Nike sponsorship. I did forget about that. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, it's like just so we're aware of like how many people we're talking about in Iowa that they're being proud to strip rights from.
Yeah.
It's weird because when you look at it for what it is, which is that like it's, Iowans don't respond when you use like ideological terms unless it fits some kind of emotional narrative they can invest in, So if you call it fascism, they'll just like, oh, well, that's just a word. That's a thing we learn about, If you call it bullying, then they might actually be like, oh, you're right. We're bullying a minority group, which is not Iowans. They're not the proudly bigoted. They like to be like, well, we're not bigoted. You know what I mean? They hide.
Good for them.
They hide bigotry behind a thing.
Great.
They do this with everything. Again, it's a cold. Iowans have a cold heart.
Well, the reason I bring that poll up is because one of the things people cite about as to why this shift might have happened is they call it brain drain, but it's that thing where you graduate from college, you grew up in Iowa, you went to college in Iowa, and you're like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of Iowa.
Everybody leaves.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That I wonder how many of those proud that same-sex marriage was legalized and how many of the don't care that same-sex marriage was legalized got the fuck out of Iowa between then and now. And I wonder, was it a bigger migration than usual because Iowa was making that push to the right?
I think that's probable. I mean, it's a really good assertion because, for example, University of Iowa has an undergraduate enrollment of about 30,000. When I went there, it was the smallest of the public Big Tens, which at the time was 11 schools, and it's now 16.
It's
Numbers,
crazy.
Names don't mean anything. Big Ten means 16 schools.
Oh,
whatever.
But can I talk about how much I love USC and UCLA being in the Big Ten? Because now I
can
get
we talk about how much I fucking hate it?
But I get every Big Ten game. I get every team comes out here.
Right.
In women's college basketball, the tickets are $10 each. Love it.
But so we can start a Big Ten podcast after this. But it's
we fucking should.
But University of Iowa, for instance, 40% of the enrollment, and I'm not exaggerating, 40% of the enrollment comes from Illinois, comes from Chicago suburbs. It is a huge amount of people that come from out of state because, at least when I was going, it was cheaper for me to go out of state to Iowa than in state to Illinois.
Wow.
University of Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yes, it was about $15,000 a year for me to go out of state to Iowa, and it was about like 17 to 18 to go to University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So like, I also didn't want to go there because a third of my graduating class went there, and I was like, fuck those assholes.
Yeah.
So I went to Iowa, and for Iowans, it's only $6,000 a semester to go to University of Iowa. So it's comparatively, it is so much cheaper to go to Iowa for Chicagoans. It also has a phenomenal nursing program. I went for the theater program, which a lot of people don't know is actually a phenomenal theater program.
The theater program is awesome.
The writer's workshop is world-renowned. The English department is world-renowned. They have a great engineering program. It's like they have a lot of really fantastic stuff there, but 40% comes from just Illinois. So, and I'm a prime example of this. I went to Iowa for school. I voted in 2 elections. I voted in the general and then the primary in 2010 and the midterms, and then I got the fuck out.
Yeah.
I did not stay. My next presidential election I voted in was here in California in 2012. So, like, it's real. I feel like I can only count on maybe 2 hands the number of friends from college who still live in Iowa.
There's some statistics in the New York Times article that we'll link to, but they go through the percentages of schools, like what percentage of graduates do they lose out of state every year. Iowa is 41st in the nation. Fucking North Dakota retains more graduates than Iowa does, which blew my mind, and it could just be construction issues.
I was going to say,
they just can't, like the highway out of the state probably just was not functioning at the time of this poll in North Dakota. But Iowa,
I don't disagree with that, but I also think I don't think a lot of people are going to North Dakota from out of state. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of, like, I have relatives that live in western North Dakota. We're talking Williston, so like near Canada and Montana. So, and they haven't left the state. So it's
Williston.
I don't know.
Sneaky place to get stabbed in the street. You wouldn't expect it, but that place is the wild fucking West. Dude. May not be now, since I think the oil industry's kind of scaling back there.
Was that the city where like the workers went to war with the police department? Well, and there was only like 1 or 2 cops?
There was a point where if you looked at a crime map of North Dakota, it was mostly blank, and then there was just this one red dot in the middle, and that was Williston, because like they got all this oil money and all these oil jobs, and they were just getting people from all over who had no work experience at all, but they were like, hey, you want to go risk your life in an oil field? Give you $150,000. That's like making $4 million in California.
And they were all maniacs.
Yes.
And they like overran the town, and they were just like causing scenes everywhere. And the cops tried to stop it. But like the company couldn't let all of their fucking employees be like locked up. So they hired their own company security that basically like fought the cops or something. I just remember there was some story where a bunch of the workers at a fracking, operation or something, like assaulted the sheriff of a town. And it became this whole, it's like literally fucking Wild West nonsense.
But I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the state where the big dog here was born, Illinois, they actually gain 20% more college graduates than they produce each year. But that's just because Chicago. Minnesota gains 8% because Minneapolis.
Yeah. In North Dakota, I imagine there's probably, this is conjecture because I don't know what the majors are at the colleges there, but I imagine when people get out of college there is more jobs in those fields in North Dakota. Iowa, especially University of Iowa, we're talking like a world-round writing program, communications department that produced like, the fucking Marvel guys, all kinds of creative and other industry professions that don't really have an industrial foothold in the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
So they have to go elsewhere to get work. And there's no, like, Iowa City's great. Des Moines is great. Neither one is Minneapolis or Chicago.
No.
So people leave. And this is happening at the same time. If we're going to look at like, especially the between 2014 and 2020 stuff, where like what happened in that time? Terry Branstad was reelected to governor. And I see the face you just made. Terry Branstad is Iowa's fucking monster.
Yeah.
He was governor when I was a kid. He was this weird thing where like he was bipartisan. He was a bipartisan Republican, meaning he would work with Democrats on certain things, and he had certain like liberal policies. But he reflected sort of the purpleness of the state at a time. But like as the party moved right, and as people were, liberal people and progressive minded voters were leaving Iowa, he was governor of Iowa. So he was kind of just allowed to move further right. And until he's like, the Tea Party didn't like him when he first came in for his second tenure. And now he's like fully in, like his son, Eric, is like worked on W's campaign and is like a big part of like the Trump machine. He's a fucking lobbyist.
Branstad left office because Trump made him
an ambassador to China.
An ambassador to China.
Yeah. So like he's fully ensconced in that fucking culture now, but he didn't. I mean, he's always been a piece of shit.
Also, I'm so sorry for accidentally misgendering the former governor of Iowa.
Terry Brandt. Oh, yeah.
On accident.
Honestly, don't.
So, yeah, just so sorry.
Also, Andy, I can't believe you had me yearning for the days of the Tea Party. Fucking
right?
hell.
How quaint.
Fucking hell.
How quaint. So yeah, this brain drain is going on at a time where like hard right Republicans across the country were sort of emboldened by their this resistance to Obama. And I just feel like it's this perfect storm. Perfect storm. What a way to put it. This horrible combination of really shitty things happening kind of got us where we are. And I do think a lot of it is squarely on the shoulders of Terry Branstad and that fucking scumbag.
Yeah.
I know you're going to bring this up in the notes, but there was that response to legalizing same-sex marriage where, what's his name? Was it Chet Culver, the governor before Branstad? Like Branstad came in and targeted Chet Culver and all these other, like the judges in Iowa that were
there was
responsible.
A campaign to kind of punish the judges that voted for same-sex marriage. And I think 3 of them got voted out because the way it worked in Iowa at the time, I think still is you were appointed as a judge, but then the people voted as to whether they wanted to keep you or not. And it seems like there were big efforts from groups outside the state.
Yeah, I mean, it was astroturfed 100%.
To rally support behind removing these judges. But it also seems like that is the point where Iowa started moving more and more to the right. And I don't doubt that it's a combination of that, of people leaving. And another thing I've seen mentioned is right-wing media starts like really, really, really taking off, if you can believe it, right around the time Obama is elected.
Why?
Crazy. Yeah, I don't know what right-wingers were mad about.
To be fair, though, to the culpability of the Democrats, Iowans do have this feeling that Washington does not care about them.
Yeah.
And the Democrats have never really made a motion to address that, not in any practical way. I mean, I went back in 2011 at one point to Cedar Rapids, and I saw the devastation from the 2008 flood was still a problem. And it was like, hey, Barack, what are you doing, buddy? Like, these are voters. You're going to need them. And then in 2020, when I moved here, there was the derecho with the strong gale force winds that like leveled Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids keeps getting like biblical plagues sent at them.
I remember we were doing that live stream at the time, and you like completely derailed it with that whole Obama doesn't care about white people thing.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Mike Myers was on the call.
Yeah. I remember that. That was crazy.
But no, that 2020 derecho leveled Cedar Rapids, and Biden had no fucking hustle to address that when he came into office. You know, it's like
that was still Obama though, 2012, right?
No, 2020.
Oh, 2020.
The flood was in 2008. But when I went out there in 2011, it was still kind of damaged from it. But then in 2020, when the derecho hit, and again, this is conjecture. Maybe someone will be like, actually, Biden passed this law to provide this many federal aid dollars or whatever.
Yeah, who knows?
But there's this like we feel left behind. People there feel left behind. You know,
it's also not just like the left behind, but I mean, it's something that I've heard from rural voters. You know, it's a lot of, well, we can decide on our own. We don't need this like nationalization of politics. We don't need, you telling us what to do. We can figure it out ourselves. And so it's like, they don't want other people telling them, what they should and shouldn't do with their lives. The irony of passing laws telling other people that they can't fucking live their own lives is really funny.
Because by then they start to believe in they're like classical libertarians, in that sense where it's like, don't tell me what to do. We can figure it ourselves. We'll fix it ourselves. But then, you come in with a narrative to exploit some weird emotional connections they have. And then you create a boogeyman. And then it's like, well, I'm not a bigot. I'm doing the right thing. And that's the fucking thing, is that the Republicans come in with these narratives. And I mean, whatever. I'm not going to say everyone in Iowa is a great person. Obviously, like I'm not fucking ever moving back there. Fuck that. Like, if I can get Hawkeye's game somewhere else, I don't need to go there.
I don't have any rights there, so I'm certainly not going back.
Yeah, the hypocrisy of it, that they don't even see it, of the like, well, don't tell us what to do, but we're going to tell these other folks what to do. It's
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's almost kind of counterproductive at this point to keep mentioning that about right wingers.
Oh, the hypocrisy, because they don't have any shame about it.
Well, it's not just that they don't have shame about it, but especially if you're talking about their really rabid followers, it's a mental thing. It's a way you're wired. I've talked about this book a million times called The Authoritarians, where this professor at, I believe, McGill University in Toronto named Bob Altemeyer gave incoming freshmen this survey that was meant to determine what segment of the population is prone to follow an authoritarian leader and what kind of characteristics they exhibit. And it's a great book. People should fucking read it. It explains a lot about Trump. But one of the things that is really common in people who seek a leader like Trump is compartmentalization. The reason they don't see it as hypocrisy is they don't see things like that as even related.
They don't connect the two.
Yeah, they can say, well, I can't say like racist shit or anti-trans shit without being punished for it online. That's censorship. Also, no DEI talk in schools. And when you're like, well, that's censorship too, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's obviously not.
Yeah, that's not censorship. That's a different thing. Yeah. And when you bring up the rise of right-wing media at that time too, you also kind of, I think, have to acknowledge that like you were saying, Jack, this idea of don't tell us what to do. We don't want to be told what to do. We don't want to be part of a national culture. We have our own state, and that's who we are. And we don't really care to be assimilated into some greater thing. But then, in concert with the rise of right-wing anti-Obama, we have more and more attention paid to the Iowa caucuses. And like Iowa as a bellwether, Iowa as an indicator for how the nation goes, Iowa as like the first word in a coming presidential general election. First the primaries. They get all this attention and scrutiny, and I think it exacerbates that chip on the shoulder mentality, right? Where it's like, oh, everybody's looking at us. You know, it's almost like they go from nobody embarrass us to, oh, you're paying attention? I'm going to embarrass the fuck out of myself right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're also very proud to be the first ones to do their primary, but then they're like very self-important about it, but then they're like, I was gonna predict the national outcome, and they're like, no, we're not. And it's like, okay, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. You either are proud to be like, yes, we're often the predictor, like that is us. We are participating in this national exercise of voting for our leader, and we're proud of it, or we're like, you know what? Let's just do this Super Tuesday with everybody else. Like, come on, guys. You cannot have it both ways. It's really fucking annoying.
Well, it's that, like, don't take away our corn subsidies, but the small farmer needs a say. And it's like, yeah, no, those two things don't exist simultaneously. What the fuck are you talking about?
So let's talk about the bill. Governor Kim Reynolds, fascist, Iowa, signed legislation to remove gender identity protections from the state's civil rights code. This raced through the legislature. It was approved by the Senate, and then the House approved it an hour later. So there was opposition to it, but definitely not enough. It was a party lines vote for the most part, but I think 5 Republicans also voted against it. All Democrats voted against it.
Which is like, it's something, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, it's almost, here's the thing, like most of the national news I see these days regarding anything is like, Democrats jumped ship to join Republicans in confirming Trump's so-and-so nominee, or appointee. So it's at least refreshing to be like, well, some Republicans were like, well, this is too fucking Nazi-like even for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, it's Iowa Republicans. They're kind of purple in some ways.
Yeah.
As long as you're not talking about like Chuck Grassley or Joni Ernst or any of those shitheads.
Oh, fuck those guys.
Yeah.
On the flip side, during Trump's thing last night, Democrats mostly did a good job of just sitting and not doing anything. But there were a couple moments where a few of them got up to applaud when he was like talking about cops. It's like, sit down.
What are you fucking doing,
Don't
man?
have to stand for that either.
Yeah. Well, it's the people sharing the Zelensky AI created Zelensky punching Trump memes or whatever, where it's just like, just because one guy's a fascist doesn't mean you have to stand the other fascist.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. So this bill, it removes gender identity as a protected class from the state's civil rights law. First legislative action in the U.S. to remove non-discrimination protectors based on gender identity.
They sure are proud to be first.
Yeah.
So proud. So
one of
proud
the
to be
first computers came from Iowa. One of the first radical feminist women's health clinics also in Iowa. And now this.
Women's
proud
basketball's
tradition.
first true superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God damn.
I know that University of Iowa was one of the first schools to go co-ed in the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're super proud about this.
The writers' workshop there too is also, I believe, Iowa was the first school in the nation to have a creative writing department.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah. And
Yeah, and now this.
they've obviously already, I think, passed like sports laws also, like transgender athletes.
Yeah.
Sports
Yeah.
laws.
What's funny
It's called
is
the Protect Caitlin Clark bill.
the funniest thing about those bills is that it's like targeting like 3 trans girls.
Such
usually.
a non-problem.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, and by and large, like it's the parents who are upset about this, and the girls just want to compete.
Yeah.
And it's always like track and field.
Yeah.
I mean, just touching on like the trans sports stuff for a hot second, there's such a catch-22 with trans athletes, specifically trans women, because that's usually who they're targeting with this.
Yes.
Mhm.
But there is a special carve out for trans men. Don't you worry. We get attacked as well. But for trans women specifically, is that like it's a catch-22 in that like if you go into athletics and you go to compete, you want to win. But if you win, it'll be said, oh, you won because you are biologically male, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why. But if you don't win, then it's like, okay, but like, should we even be bothering to let
You
them
don't even
compete?
belong here.
And,
yeah.
and also, like, what's the point of competing if you have to hold yourself back to not win so that people aren't going to target you and like be transphobic at
Yeah.
you? And so it's like, I just.
Well, again, it like speaks to the hypocrisy issue too, because the same people that are saying this stuff on a Saturday morning will watch an Iowa game and be like, "Oh yeah, our offensive line's bigger, so we're gonna win." And it's just like, well, now you're isolating a biological difference here and saying that there are a physical difference here and saying that that's something to be celebrated in this situation. Like, when does it become ideological for you? When does it become like? But again, it's that compartmentalization. It's yeah.
And for the record, Iowa has not won for offensive stuff because Brian Ferentz sucks.
Brian
Anyway.
Ferentz is such garbage, man.
Adam, when is our Big Ten podcast?
I mean, I'm down. I do a few sports podcasts. I do a WNBA podcast. You think I won't do a Big Ten podcast?
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
I think the biggest applause I ever got comedy related in Iowa was when I called for the head of Kirk Ferentz at a bar in Iowa City on stage. I was just like, somebody go get him. I know he lives around here.
Yeah.
Cut his head off and bring it to me. I want to give it to my father for his birthday.
He lives in the only multi-million-dollar house in the state of Iowa.
Well, he's the highest paid state employee in the state, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that he's going to be there till 2029.
Fucking God damn it. Can he just go away?
I wish. Trust me, I wish. Anyway, Adam, let's talk. I feel like we need to cut in and talk about jokes because this is also fucking bleak.
Yeah. Well, one thing I skipped in the notes. about Pizza Ranch? That came up in.
I've only been to Pizza Ranch once.
Oh,
All right. We got a Pizza Ranch here just outside of the city. I think it's in one of the suburbs.
they have one of the most brilliant business models. They are almost exclusively in towns of like 2,500 people or less. I remember Sioux Falls got one, and I was like, "Are you sure? There's way too many people here for a Pizza Ranch."
I remember the one time I went to a Pizza Ranch was because my friend wanted to, because Rick Santorum, what a name you haven't heard in a minute.
Haven't heard that one in a minute. Was looking forward to never hearing it again.
Was going around to every county in Iowa, 99 counties, but a bitch ain't one, and he was going to each and every county, and he was stopping at like mostly pizza ranches. And so my friend, he was stopping nearby at a pizza ranch, and my friend was like, I want to go confront him about like his LGBT stances, like at his little meeting at Pizza Ranch where he's inviting voters to come talk to him. And I was like, I guess I'll go support you in this. And that is the single only time I've ever been to a Pizza Ranch was to watch my friend confront Rick Santorum.
That's great. I was going to be like, y'all should come out here and we'll go to a Pizza Ranch. We'll make wings. We'll watch some games. But also, like, I don't know if I want to ruin that streak for you. I feel like
honestly, yours might be a better experience because I won't be in the room with Rick Santorum.
That is very true. Now, what if you showed up and he was just there?
Well, I was going to say, what if we can lure Rick Santorum there too, and then we just
what
beat
is he
him in
doing?
the parking lot?
I mean, what is he doing? What is he doing right now?
confront him all over again?
Oh my God,
That would be
I'd throw
great.
fisticuffs.
Yeah, I loved Pizza Ranch. Very good. I maybe like the fried chicken a little better than the pizza.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the pizza.
I mean,
I love a pizza buffet. Oh, just so many varieties of the same food,
yeah,
basically. Love it.
yeah. Pizza Ranch is probably the best pizza buffet too.
Oh, Godfather's.
Pretty,
Politics
Godfather's
aside.
used to have a good one. Yeah, I
Cece's
haven't been
is
to a
all right.
Godfather's in a lot. Cece's.
Oh, Cece's
This
is.
is all right.
I hate
did
it.
too much. I did too much Cece's in college, and
I've only been to Cece's once, and the pizza was wet.
yeah, the Cece's we had at the Via Linda Mall in Santa Fe was pretty
It
bad.
was really, really bad. Like it was one of those pay $5 all you can eat. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
$5
too
all you
much,
can eat.
Actually,
Yeah,
That's-
and we were college kids, so we went often.
turns out I can't eat $5 worth of Cece's pizza.
Yeah. I can only, the only pizza buffet that I can truly speak to is an all you can eat Brazilian pizza place where they walk around to your table with like the strangest pizzas you've ever fucking seen, but it's all delicious. I'm talking like beef stroganoff pizza, and you're like, what is happening here? But like Brazilians know where it's at.
So it's like a Brazilian
Steakhouse.
steakhouse style place, but with pizza.
Yeah.
Where is this?
Yeah.
What?
I gotta.
There was one in like Culver City-ish. This was like pre-pandemic, so I don't know if
Oh,
it survived,
no.
but I have to look it up.
I love a Brazilian steakhouse.
Mhm.
Oh man, love it, love it.
There's
love
one
it.
in Glendale, but I don't know if it's there anymore.
There's one
Um,
in Burbank. It's like cafeteria style, and then you pay by what your plate weighs,
Mm.
and it's really good.
Okay.
It's really
I-
really good.
For any listeners who are like, okay, but I tuned in to listen to them talk about Iowa and politics, I cannot stress enough that this is how most Midwest conversations devolve.
Yeah.
Is like, what's the best food you've had recently? What's the
Yeah.
what's the heartiest thing you've eaten? What can I get the most of for the least amount of money?
The only thing we're missing from this conversation to make it the most Iowa discussion is gossip about family members and neighbors. That's the only thing we can
Yeah.
bring in to make it even more specifically Iowan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but none of us are saying "I love you" to each other, so that tracks with Midwestern sensibilities.
Oh, yeah.
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 We're all very emotionally distant. That's
hmm Harboring quiet.
You should know that I love you. I shouldn't have to say it.
shouldn't have to say it. Come on,
Come on.
Why? So enough about the good stuff about the Midwest.
What is this, San Francisco? Please. We're Iowans.
How about a quote? This is Iowa Representative Amy Wichtendahl. the last Democrat to speak out in opposition before the bill was voted on. Here goes. The purpose of this bill and the purpose of every anti-trans bill is to further erase us from public life and to stigmatize our existence. The sum total of every anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ bill is to make our existence illegal. End quote. She got a standing ovation after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, it's like, some people are, it's like, I don't know if people really understand, like, the extent of like what the bathroom bills really meant to the trans community is like, if you tell people that they need to go to the bathroom of their assigned gender at birth, like if I were to do that, I would have to go into a women's room and people would be like, why is that man going in the women's room? I'm doing the thing that legally I'm supposed to do. I'm going to get the shit beat out of me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If a trans woman does that and goes into the men's room or lies and continues to go into the women's room, she's going to get the shit beat out of her. And so that fear, and then you've got a lot of people who are in the middle. You've got, like I'm blessed enough, like, for people who are listening who did not see the screen grab of us in all of our Iowa stuff. Like I'm very blessed in that, like I can operate in my day-to-day life. Most people do not know that I'm trans. Some of them can guess because I am 5'2" and have tiny little hands, but most of them are like gay, and I'm like, yeah, yeah.
I'm a flavor of gay. Yeah.
Also not wrong, but that's what they label me as, and I go,
I mean,
okay.
again, in Iowa, they call me gay, and it's like, yeah, you're half right. You're
Sure, yeah,
You're close.
Yeah.
you're in the ballpark.
I'm wearing
might as well.
I'm wearing a
Yeah,
women's
yeah.
basketball sweatshirt. I'm gay in the right part of the Midwest for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, right building, wrong floor. But like it's like the bathroom bills is that you have a lot of people that are in between. So you have people who are just starting to transition, or like their gender is a little more ambiguous, and they are stuck in a place of I don't know where to go. And so by telling trans people, okay, you have to go to the building that you were assigned gender at birth, suddenly you can't use a public bathroom, which means you cannot go to public establishments, and because you have to pee, you could get the shit beat out of you, or killed, or arrested, or whatever. And so like that's a one way to erase us from public life. And so I waited to bring this up, but they introduced another bill. My friend who works for an Iowa nonprofit and is queer posted about the Iowa Republicans. They introduced a bill to criminalize vaccine providers, and they also are trying to pass a bill to criminalize homelessness. This is the big one.
Well, LA did that one first, Iowa, so you can't be proud about it.
Well, here's the thing about this one is that, and my friend pointed this out, I like took a screenshot of her story about it, is that the bill criminalizes homelessness, but they have also criminalized, or they have made it legal to make trans people homeless by discriminating in housing and employment.
Denying them housing.
Right.
And
Correct. So now you can deny trans people housing. Now you can criminalize them being homeless. And there is a part of this bill that makes it a crime for publicly funded service providers to help anyone using controlled substances, which includes medications for ADHD, testosterone, and methadone used to treat opioid dependency, and more. So now, like I take testosterone. It is a controlled substance. It is a bitch and a half to get my prescriptions filled. It would be a crime for people if I was homeless in Iowa to get help from any public service provider to help me because I use testosterone. So it is a hat on a hat of criminalizing trans people just because we want to get fucking left alone. Like, I just want to live my life. I just want to live my life. I just want to do the things I want to do. I'm not fooling anybody. I'm not hiding who I am. I'm just trying to live my life. That's what's happening. They're making trans people the boogeyman because, like I said, there's about 19,000 trans people in the state of Iowa. That's not a lot. Chances are there's a lot of Iowans that have never met a trans person. There's also chances are a lot of them have, but they don't know
they
it.
don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, living in LA, it's like I've always wanted to be that person where it's just like, they're like, well, I've never met a trans person. And it's like, actually, you have. Like, I'm really normal. Like, we're friends and I'm very normal. We're normal. It's like we're not trying to change the world. We're not trying to, radicalize your children. What's happening is that your children are discovering that, like, we're in a place where people are able to come out more and they feel safer to come out. That's why more trans youth are coming out earlier.
Hmm.
I came out when I was 25 because I didn't even know being trans was a thing until I was a late teen. So like we're seeing a lot more of it. So it feels like there's a lot more of it. You're being exposed to a lot more of it. But really, we're 0.6% of the population. There's not a lot of us. Like so it's easy to make us the boogeyman because people don't understand. A lot of people have not met trans people. They
Yeah.
do not understand. They just see the most radical versions of us and put out by right-wing media too.
It's the scapegoating bigotry playbook that they do every so often for whatever minority group they want to distract
Hmm.
from, whatever with. And
Hmm.
they did it with black people. They've done
Hmm.
it with Latinos. They've done it with gay people.
How many times have the Jews been the scapegoat?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
It's
over and
it's
over and over.
gotta
Yeah.
add, super fun to be a gay, to be a trans Jew. Gotta say, very fun right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just Iowa has successfully convinced its citizens that trans
Yeah.
people are who to blame for this, and that eradicating us from public life is also going to stop us from existing. In case anybody wasn't aware, trans people have always existed. We have
Hmm.
always existed. We've existed under in every civilization, whether we've been celebrated in those or hidden away in others. It's like we have always been here. It's just that technology's gotten better and our visibility, it ebbs and flows. And so it's like now we're unfortunately in an ebbing time where they want to get rid of us, but we will always exist. The number one creator of trans people is cis people, cisgender
Yeah.
people. Sorry, straight
Yeah.
people make trans children. You
Yeah.
give birth to them and they exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't go out and like and go out to like radicalize. We're not evangelical about becoming trans. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. It's really fucking hard on so many levels. Even like mentally, emotionally, like going through everything. I wouldn't recommend this life to anybody. It sucks a lot of times, but like it's, I don't want to convince people to be trans if they're not, because that's also not who they are.
Yeah, it's the ideological assignment of identity as opposed to, just letting people live their lives authentically. It has to
Yeah.
mean something because if it means something, it can be used for political capital to get the most bad faith actors more power. And I
Hmm.
think that that's always the thing I think I want to keep in mind with stuff like this is that it's like, it's not everyone in that state. It's not
Right.
even most of them.
Yeah.
It's just the people that manage to get power. And they, Iowa especially. I mean, I think it's probably there's this kind of crazy shit going on everywhere, but
One of the things that kills me about this bill in particular is that when Reynolds was pushing it, she was like, well, the way the laws are written now, it's contributing to taxpayers paying for gender reassignment surgery. And it's like, what version of the United States do you think we're living in where anyone's getting any sort of elective surgery easy? That's not a thing, no matter what the fuck you're getting taken care of at a fucking hospital in the United
yeah.
States.
I mean, unless you're a senator.
Yeah, true.
Well, and here's the other thing is that people don't recognize what actually is gender affirming care. They always lump it under like, oh, well, it's obviously all these surgeries those transgenders are getting. And it's like, or you have a lot of women who get breast augmentation. That's a gender affirming surgery. You have people getting implants, men taking testosterone because they think that it's going to increase their visibility as a man. That's a gender affirming care. People don't recognize that cisgender people, for people who don't know what that word is, that is somebody who identifies as the gender they were assigned at birth. They do it all the time, but yet we're not criminalizing that. But instead, we're criminalizing people who are a very small minority of the population. And it's just like your taxpayer dollars are paying for a lot of shit you probably actually be more upset that they're paying for than this. It's like, y'all don't know how much I had to pay out of pocket for my fucking surgery. Like the red tape that the system already sets up, the fact that I, as an adult, had to get other adults to sign off on my mental stability to get this surgery done when some, cis woman can walk into a fucking the same plastic surgeon and say, I would like M cup tits, please. And they go, yep, let's go. Meanwhile, I'm like, please remove them because I don't want them anymore. But I have to go through psychological evaluations for that. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
What?
And you keep mentioning how small the population is. With the sports thing, Texas just filed a lawsuit because the NCAA already passed a ban on transgender athletes in NCAA sports, I believe. And Texas is like, well, now that you've done that, let's take it a step further. And how about gender testing for every athlete who plays women's sports? And the president of the NCAA, who I'm sure is like a right-wing fuckstick in his own way, was like, all right, dude, we're talking about like 10 athletes here. Like there's like 10 that I can think of. And you want to put every school on the hook to test every woman who wants to play sports. And it's just another way to fucking invade women's space.
Yeah.
And do it under the guise of protecting women, which is the craziest part.
That's the catch of how trans men get caught up into this, is that we are, quote unquote, poor women who just need to be protected from. It's like, hi, I have my own agency and I can make my own decisions, and I decided that I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
And I continue to make that active decision every day. And it's like, it's also not a choice. Like, talking to my friends, like, when I was in high school, and be like, do you ever just feel the need to dig your fingers under your flesh and like remove your boobs? And they look at me and go, no. Like, I'm like, oh, just me? Cool. Gonna bury that forever. But, it's like they want to, quote unquote, protect women. And it's like, you're making our lives harder. You're making people's lives harder. And the other thing with like gender testing is that you also have athletes who are like Caster Semenya, who they did gender testing on her and found out that she had elevated testosterone levels. But like, born a woman, identifies as a woman, you're catching now intersex people in this. And it's like, we don't even have the fucking time to talk about the bullshit that happens to intersex people and how like we are so like, oh God, I don't have time. But like we just, you're now catching them up in there too. And then like suddenly people are like, wait, what do you mean I have a higher testosterone level? What do you mean I can't compete? Like, I'm a woman, I identify as a woman. Like, what do you mean? And it's like, that's like, it is, I hate the term slippery slope, but it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you are not aware of what you're now doing. And also, you want to talk about saving taxpayer dollars because you, quote unquote, don't want to pay for trans people's surgeries, but you want to have your tax dollars pay for checking the hormone levels, the chromosomes, and the genitals sometimes. Like, some of these suggestions are it's like, these are perverts suggesting these bills, and that's actually who we should be getting rid of. I'm sorry, you want to check like 14-year-old girls' genitals because you want to make sure, quote unquote, make sure that they're actually women? Disgusting. So that, what are we doing? Like, that's what you actually want your taxpayer dollars to pay for? Why don't you just let girls compete regardless of whatever gender they were born as? And if the trans girl is better than your cis girls, maybe you should train them harder.
Yeah.
Also, like, hormones completely change your profile. So if like a trans woman is on estrogen for a certain period of time, her hormone profile will look like a cisgender woman's profile. My testosterone level is the same as a cisgender man's. It is the same because of how much testosterone I take. And it's like, yeah, I still have ovaries. And it's like, if I were to stop taking testosterone, that would take over. I'd have some things come back, but like my voice is forever changed. Like my muscles would decrease a bit, but like there's hormonally nothing different about me than a cisgender man. And so it's like, and I've been on T for almost 10 years. So, and that happened maybe 3 years into the process, 2 years into the process. Like it happens very fast. So to say that like trans athletes, especially trans women who have been on hormones, I want to specifically say been on hormones because it, whatever. But I'm also not saying that trans people pre-hormones should not be
Yeah,
allowed to compete.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
want to make
yeah.
that very clear. But the other thing to like it's like a trans woman's hormone profile is the same as a cis woman. We are competing on the same levels here. But you also have like some trans women, like there's a trans woman who's a bodybuilder, weightlifter, Janae Marie, who still competes with men because she knows that her ability to lift will far surpass the cis women she'd be competing with. So she still competes with men because she's like, I understand where I am in this.
Well, and it's contextual, and it's conditional.
And it's to say that like we're like evil, nefarious people and we're out to trick everybody, blah blah blah. And like it's like I said, this is also how they view Jewish people. But it's like we're not the boogeyman. We're not out here tricking anybody. Like that's often how trans women get killed, is because it's like cis men especially are like, you tricked me, and being
Hmm.
like, she's a woman who's identifying it like she's a woman and you're attracted to women, you're attracted to her, but like because it's so fucked up. Like it is all so fucked up. And like I said, trans people just be out here trying to live our fucking lives and try to just like, I just
Yeah.
want to go to the grocery store. I just want to live in my dumbass little apartment. Like that's my back wall of my apartment. Like it's little, but this is my space. Like this is all I want. I just want to have a job. I just want to, have a relationship. Like we aren't asking for the world. We just want the same rights as everybody else and not have legislation against us to eradicate us from public life, because it won't work. We're not going away. We won't cease to exist. You're just going to make our lives harder. And for what? To what
and
end?
and in the
Why?
process make everyone else's lives harder and double down on scapegoating others. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah. You can't, once you start making laws and policies regarding gender testing,
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, what, like you said, do you want your tax dollars to go to that, because that's even
Mm-hmm.
more wasteful. But then it's
Yeah.
like, then you get into there has to be an infrastructure created for that, which means there has to be agencies and people in charge of those agencies and employees, and it's
Mm-hmm.
again spreading so thin.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when the goal here is exhaustion, right? Like
Yeah.
they keep like that's what all the executive orders were about. That's what all of this doubling down on. We just had one of these bills in Minnesota too. This like pretty much the same bill that did not pass. But it's this like they're trying to cram everything in all at once.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work because it can't. It's too much.
Yeah, I will add that like one thing that I feel like kind of slipped under the radar, but it may have just, maybe I'm wrong because it's like mostly on my feed, but I was mostly just seeing my trans friends posting about it, is that Trump had an executive order that changed passports to only male and female.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
ever had a passport and changed your gender on your passport, they would revert your passport back to whatever that initial gender was.
Yeah. Hunter Schafer
Yes.
just got.
Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully I got my passport renewed in 2021, so I'm good for a little bit. But that's one of those things too, whereas people are getting their passports returned back to them with the wrong gender marker, which now puts them in unsafe situations
Yeah.
to travel and to potentially leave the country.
Yeah.
So it's like now there's a lot of trans people who are now in a situation where they're like, I can't leave, but I
Yeah.
also can't stay here.
Hmm.
And so in too many countries, that would feel safe-ish, or at least a lot of English-speaking countries are passing a lot more anti-trans legislation. So there's really not a lot of places to go. Like I'm sitting here going like I am staying in California and in Los Angeles because I at least I'm like, okay, I know that at least like my state laws will protect me for now. My local laws will protect me for now. The culture of LA will protect me for now.
And that rightward cultural shift is happening real quick,
Mhm.
though. So many people just complying in advance, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to
No, no,
not to
no,
like, hey, you
no.
want to feel worse?
No, no, no. I feel a lot of pride in the fact that I've always been a contrarian and that like I'm like you were not gonna make me comply in any fucking way unless like my life is on the fucking line. And I feel okay here right now, but like, it's like I have looked into emigrating and there's just not a lot of options. And so it's the reality. And so you look at, to bring it all the way back, it's like, trans people in Iowa are now faced with, do I stay and fight
Yeah.
without having any of my rights? That if I am, that it's like I can lose my housing, I can lose my job, I can lose a lot. They are faced with the decision, do I stay and fight or do I leave?
Hmm.
And I don't, if there are any, if there are any trans listeners in Iowa right now, so I'm talking to the three of you, I commend you for whatever decision you make. You got to do what's
Yeah,
right for you.
it's like
Yeah.
unfortunately, the rhyming of it is that it's kind of how we got to this point to begin with, is that people decided to leave instead of staying and fighting as Iowa went right. I mean,
Yeah.
I left when I was too young to have
Hmm.
any agency over it, but I know a lot of people who have left that state in the last, uh, 20 years.
Hmm.
And it's, there's no wrong choice for someone who's in danger because of their existence.
Hmm.
If you fight, if you leave, Godspeed either way. But the people who aren't on the line, the people who aren't at the moment existentially threatened by speaking up and taking action, need to step the fuck up, cis people, white cis people, white cis men.
At me next time, Andy.
I'm adding myself, bitch.
I feel like I'm doing a podcast about it right
No,
now.
we're fine. We're the good ones. Adam, we're the good ones. I'm bi and you like women's basketball. We're okay.
I got a Mariah Carey album hanging over
you
my
might
shoulder.
as well be bi. You're an honorary bi, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. As a fellow bisexual, yeah, we'll crown you as it's really your admiration of Mariah Carey.
Yeah, I
that,
was just
like,
gonna say you've got a Mariah Carey poster and a Prince poster. You count.
Yeah.
You're in the
Yeah.
that
community.
too.
Yeah. There's no honorary about that.
The Hangover
Um,
3 calendar, I assume, is doing nothing for anyone.
No,
Yeah.
no. If there was a
No.
dick going into Ken Jeong's mouth, then yes, now we're talking.
Yeah, but yeah, if you live anywhere listening to this and you know and love trans people in your lives, even if you don't know a trans person, hi, you're listening to one right now, so now you do. Too bad. Haha. I
And your
tricked you.
friends. You're
And
friends now.
yeah, we're friends now. Hi. We are, you gotta, speaking up and like, you don't have to become an activist. It's literally, if you hear people talking shit about trans people, you can just be like, that's not true. Like, that's not true.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're just people who want to live their lives and, aren't doing anything to hurt anyone. Frankly, there's not enough of us to do anything to hurt anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Most trans people live in poverty, and we have an alarming rate of homelessness already in the trans community. We are, severely underemployed. It is like it is. We do not have any sort of political power, and the people that I would say a similar.
There's one trans senator, right? Who's
Yeah,
APAC affiliated. So
we're a very small minority of people and we need allies everywhere, but like we don't have a lot of political power. And if you can just speak up about trans people, just like, you don't have to become a trans advocate. Like, it's really okay. But yeah, just even calling people's bullshit out and being like, that's just not true.
Just getting in the way of it.
Yeah.
Just disrupting it, interrupting it, and even, you don't even have to be shitty, probably, right?
No,
like
you
just
can, you
a
can do.
simple bro, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, being like that's, honestly, the number of times I've interrupted people saying bullshit, like especially my father when he goes on like racist comments, I just go, "Hey man, that's racist. Don't say that." Like we don't even have to go into it. Like I can usually explain to him why, but like you can just be
Yeah.
like, "Don't say that. That's not cool. Just be the thorn." Even that is really helpful. If anything, like, if anything I've proven on this podcast is that like I am trans and also just want to talk about wings and food and
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 Iowa football.
and Iowa football and like that's all I want to do, It's like, and you guys can't see it, but like my cats appeared occasionally. Like it's like I just like my life is full and full of other things than just, stealing taxpayer dollars to fund my transgender surgeries.
You're not an agent planted to derail the Democratic Party by appealing to godless leftists.
Yeah, at least not for being trans.
No.
But I do get a George Soros check for having Jack on the podcast.
Yes, yes, and he does share a little bit with that of me. It should be more.
Yeah, it
but,
should be more, but straight white dude. Come on.
Well, yeah, and it was also
Sharing
like the
money?
contract he signed to. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand. I thought being Jewish would also help like get a little bit more of that cut, but it's fine, whatever. But yeah, if you, especially if you live in these states where these bills are being introduced, because they're being introduced everywhere, nobody's expecting you to go speak at your legislation, but also reach out to your representatives and be like, hey, this bill's bullshit because trans people are just trying to live their lives and this is a bad idea and I'm your constituent and you represent me. Tough shit, bitch. If you didn't want to represent your people, this isn't the job for you. Go be a lobbyist.
Yeah.
So,
or don't be a lobbyist. Here's what you should do. Fill up 2 pillows with concrete and then walk into the Mississippi River.
here's what you should do. Get on a yacht where there's a lot of orcas around. And yeah, it doesn't have to be a lot, but trans people are like, you look at 0.6% of the population of the US, that is 1.6 million people. It is not a lot of people. And a lot of them live in New York and LA and Chicago.
Yeah, none of like most of them don't live anywhere near you guys.
Yeah, but we do live everywhere. We are
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
Like, I don't know anyone who is anti-trans enough to ask the question, but I would love to know how people think their lives would change in the slightest if trans people didn't exist at all. You motherfuckers wouldn't notice.
Mm-mm.
Most of the people who are so in support of these anti-trans bills have probably never met a fucking trans person. I don't know if I met a Jewish person when I lived in South Dakota. Like, the Midwest, there are certain groups that just aren't there. Like, Asian people in South Dakota, holy shit, still almost none. So like immigrants, that's another, like also being demonized right now. A group where most of the people doing the demonizing have not even fucking met one. Don't interact with them at all. Life will not change once they're jettisoned from society.
Or when it comes to immigrants, the only way that they've interacted with them is leaving an envelope of cash on the counter for when they're done cleaning their house.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, if you've never met a trans person, hi, like you officially kind of have. And to not to plug other things, but if you want to hear me talking about normal fucking shit, like I've been on other episodes of Adam's other podcasts. If you're an Unpops person, like Unpops Network person, like go, I've been on other shit not talking about being trans. Like we have a full breadth of life that's not just being gender radicals.
Like the only reason trans people have to be so political about their existence is because of cis bigots.
Yeah.
Like it's because your existence is being questioned that you have to be political. It's like otherwise you could just live your life as if you had cis privilege.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which,
and frankly, a lot of trans people do. Like
yeah,
when they like I could easily just fade away and not
yeah.
speak about trans stuff and be what we call in the community stealth and like never mention that I'm trans to anybody ever again. It wouldn't work because too many people know that I'm trans, but a lot of people will transition and then move somewhere else
Hmm.
and then live their life as that gender and tell absolutely nobody.
Well, because that's safety. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a safety thing, but it is also like, there's plus sides and there are pluses and minuses to it of like you just don't have that community. You don't have, there's a lot of like your history that you can't really talk about, but
Hmm.
a lot of people do it. A lot of people do it. And you're seeing a lot more trans people who have lived stealth come out because they're like, I need people to know that I am trans and that like a trans person and I'm fucking normal.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm a normal human being with aspirations, with struggles, with that is the same as everybody else. I just happen to have to fight with Walgreens a little bit more than you do. Like,
And we all know what that's like because we all
oh,
have to fight with Walgreens.
Yeah.
oh my God. Yeah, it's like a real that could be a whole oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
whole side
Yeah.
tangent. But that's the thing is that like, Iowa has just decided that trans people are the current boogeyman and that this is going to somehow, quote unquote, fix whatever is happening there.
I mean, it's a manufactured pretend problem that people that are supposed to be fixing real problems can distract with so that they don't have to fix any real problems and they can continue to fleece and grift and sell whatever infrastructure remains to help people for parts.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Mm,
All right.
I want a taco pizza.
Yeah.
Uh,
I could go for a slice of Casey's now.
Honestly, there's a pizza place in Iowa City that I don't even know if it's still there called Mesa Pizza that has
Mm,
the best mac and cheese pizza I've
mm.
ever had in my life. And any mac and cheese pizza that I have, I'm constantly chasing that high, and it has never made it.
Yeah. The high I chase when it comes to Midwest food is egg foo young. They make it different in the Midwest than anywhere else. And it is delicious.
My parents are big egg foo young people.
Yeah.
I
am
fucking
not.
love it, but I'm very discerning about it. It's got to be
Well,
the
it's
right
like the
gravy.
Midwestern hard shell tacos. You don't really
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
really do them right anywhere outside
Mhm.
because they're not. I mean, they're abominations.
Yeah.
But that's
Oh,
great.
man.
We,
Yeah.
Yeah, the Midwest is not all bad. It's not all fucking right wingers, but
No,
the governments make it seem like it is in a lot of cases.
well, we all moved to California and we let the right wingers have it. Unfortunately,
except Illinois.
yeah,
Yeah.
baby.
yeah. If
For
y'all
now.
produced Rahm Emanuel, I don't want to hear it.
Oh yeah.
All
yeah.
right, all right, and Rod Blagojevich. You're talking about your
Oh,
your
yeah.
dad earlier with the signs pulling people's signs. My dad had 2 foot by 3 foot signs for Rod Blagojevich in our yard. The first time he was running for governor, and the second time he was running, I was like, oh. Are you gonna put the Blagojevich signs out again? And my dad's like, absolutely
Fucking
not.
no way.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
My dad being a former Teamster, like in the suburbs of Chicago.
Oh dang!
Or that
We were very
thing
brave.
where Illinois ended the death penalty, and you want to be like, oh wow, that's very progressive of Illinois. It's like, wait till you find out why they ended the death penalty. It's because of one fucking rogue cop in Chicago who at the end of his career was like, I sent hundreds of innocent people to prison. And we were like, well, I guess we can't kill everybody now. Very progressive, Illinois.
Yeah, we love Illinois.
Yeah.
And it was definitely only that one cop doing it.
Yeah,
too.
just that
It-
one cop.
There's no
Just-
way. There's no way there were any other cops that didn't fess up to it.
Yeah, he's the
We don't-
only one who worked at Home and Square, you know?
Yeah, we don't live in a police state whatsoever. Not
No.
this country. No way.
No.
What's that small town in Iowa that I sent you that story about that like they had like a gay city council It's like
Oh.
this weird gay sanctuary town in Iowa, but there was like some film noir drama going on where like a city council member was like clashing with the chief of police who was also gay, and there was like one of the other city council members was sending him porn on his phone, and
Sounds like
I
a
don't know.
TV show.
Yeah, it sounds. I mean, it could be
documentary.
It's a season of Fargo.
I need to read this.
Fargay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'll see if I can find this story and send it to you. It's really kind of fascinating.
But
need
I
it.
think that's our episode, right? This was
I guess.
Sure.
What an uplifting episode, Adam. Thanks
Yeah.
for having us on.
Well, that's the thing. At first, after Trump got elected, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not doing politics on the pod for a while. And then, like Andy said, motherfuckers started Nazi saluting at the inauguration in CPAC. And it's like, well, I'm not trying to be a collaborator either.
Yeah.
So now every episode is political as shit. And we end it going, what do you fucking do?
I got some ideas, but I can't say them on the podcast.
Hopefully we get traded to Denmark for Greenland. California, I mean.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
That would be all right. If Denmark takes over California, oof, let's do it. Give me that socialized medicine, baby.
Yeah, our capital's going to move to Solvang.
I'm fine with that. I
Pea
got
soup.
dual citizenship. Great,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
We're gonna go to Canada, I think, Minnesota.
It's cute you think Canada's
Seems to
not
be.
going to shut that border down in like a week. That's the other thing. You think all these other countries, after all these years of the United States being like, don't send your fucking refugees here, there's going to be a lot of countries that are like, fucking don't come here.
But I'm gonna do the Vietnam draft dodger thing. I'm taking a boat across a lake. There's so much. I'm doing that. I like the woods anyway. You know.
I would fuck with Costa Rica. It's like aside from Canada,
Oh, Pura Vida.
it's the only other country outside the U.S. I've ever been to, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
I would
I'm looking
go to
at
Costa
New
Rica.
Zealand myself.
Oh, fly to the
Hobbits.
Concords and shit.
Yeah, we have two different calls. I'm like Lord of the Rings, and you're like,
All right, we should wrap it up. Thank you both. This was a very good episode. I appreciate it. When I say we should wrap it up, I mean the United States. We should just
yeah, just
Oh, yeah.
call it quits.
let's just chop it
Yeah,
up. Be
we
like,
had a. I think we had a
I'm all
good
about
run.
Yeah.
At this point. It's just like we literally are the Axis powers, like us and Israel and however many other allies we still have. We are the Axis powers, and we just need the rest of the world to catch up. I hope that the right wing. The most recent wave of fascist power concentration in Europe kind of like is delayed enough so that the global South can convince some coalition of Western nations to send fucking troops, man.
I do like, I mean, I'm not a huge Zelensky fan either. That's the thing. Once you get to that level, like Putin, Zelensky, who was the fucking guy that opposed Putin who just died?
The
Alexei
Nazi.
Navalny. Yeah.
Navalny, yeah.
Fucking
the
Nazi. Like, fuck him too. But
Yeah.
I did find it interesting during Zelensky's little spat with Trump that Zelensky was like, you know, your oceans aren't going to protect you forever, right? And I don't think he's wrong.
No, he's not. But
I think the only question is, what's the ETA on us hoping for it?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for us being like, someone, please, for the love of
Someone
God,
just fucking bomb DC.
liberate Guantanamo, please. My God.
Yeah.
Someone get Jack and Andy out of Guantanamo, please. For the love of God.
It's cute that you think I'm gonna make it to Guantanamo.
Yeah, that's fair.
We're disappearing on the way. I feel like
Yeah, they're taking me out immediately.
Yeah, that's fair.
So on that uplifting note,
Yeah, we did it. Thank you both again. This feels like a great time to plug stuff. What do we have to plug? Buy all of your vitamins and supplements in our online. No, wait, that's coming soon.
that's a different podcast.
Yeah,
that's his InfoWars podcast.
all I want is for you to follow me on Blue Sky at adamtoddbrown.bsky.social. That is Todd with 1D. I keep saying I want to get off the other platforms. I'm just not on them anymore. Like, I still have accounts there, but
I don't.
It's fucking,
I don't post.
yeah, it's Blue Sky or nothing. And I kind of need a social media following in my field. So follow me on Blue Sky. It's nice there for now. It's nice. Jack, what do you want to plug?
When is this coming out?
This is coming out Monday.
Good. If you live in the Los Angeles area, on March 15th, I am co-hosting Hamilton's LA, which is a Hamilton sing-along, because it's been almost 10 years since that musical came out initially, and we're still doing the sing-along. It's like a sing-along meets karaoke meets Rocky Horror Shadowcast. You come, you show up, you sign up to sing. We do the whole musical top to bottom. It is super, super fun. Even if you're like, I don't enjoy getting up on stage and singing, still come and you can sing from your seat. It's at the Roguelike Tavern in Burbank. It is free to come, 2-item minimum, but they do serve food. But yeah, you can follow that at Hamilton's LA on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, because we're still there. It's so hard to get off these social media platforms when you have things to advertise.
Yep.
And then you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, if you are still there, at Jack Loves TV. I do have a Blue Sky. It is mostly a 911 fandom Blue Sky.
Hell yeah.
Account. So I don't recommend that.
Yeah, I do also have a strictly tennis related Blue Sky, which is adamtennisbrown.bsky.social. That's no joke. You can go follow me there. I keep my pro tennis talk away from
okay, if Adam's pitching his tennis Blue Sky, fine. If you're into 911 and want like horny deranged messages on your feed, you can follow me on Blue Sky at Men Kissing. I got it. On Blue.
That's a get right there. That's a coup.
Yeah. Did I get Jack Loves TV? I think so. I think I also have that. I've never updated it, but I did get Men Kissing, and that's mostly where I post.
Andy,
you're welcome, everybody.
What do you got to plug?
Oh gosh, I mean, yeah, I'm still on them all, but I only use it to like have messages with friends that I don't keep in touch with through texts. You know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna nuke Twitter at some point. I swear it. One of these days, I'm gonna see the fucking bullshit tweet that finally compels me to pull the trigger on completely destroying my account.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm just using it to retweet Palestinian and trans accounts. Instagram is mostly the same. I am on Blue Sky, but it's a little too shitlibby in there for me most of the time. It kind of nauseates me. But andysell.bsky.social. That's probably where I'm most active. And Looking for the Boys is about to wrap up this season. We're delaying. We had some delay on our last 3 episodes, but we will put them out soon. And then we're going to take like a 2-month break before we come back in the summer. And You Don't Even Like This Band. Hey, listen to that with me, Adam, and Travis. That's a pretty good time.
It is.
And I might as well just set this up months in advance. If you live in Minnesota, specifically the Minneapolis area, or you're not too far of a drive from there, and you're September 20th and 21st is free. That's the date that we have for the 2nd annual Restless Equinox Independent Film Fest. If you like horror and dark speculative cinema from people working outside of the studio system and you're in the upper Midwest, that's the place to go.
I would like to plug how much I have to piss right now.
Oh, perfect. I actually have 7 more things to talk about real quick.
Let's get out of here. Andy, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Jack, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. We love you.